Welcome to Learnit Training. The exercise files for today's course are located in the video description below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Joe and I'm going to be facilitating this course for you today. Today we're talking about Copilot from Microsoft Excel. Now, Copilot has been a major topic lately, and it's something that's going to change the way that we work with these applications. In order for us to understand Copilot from Microsoft Excel, we have to understand what Copilot is.
Looking to support our channel and get a great deal? Become a member today to unlock ad-free videos. That's right, your favorite courses without a single ad. Interested in a specific video? Purchase one of our ad-free courses individually. Looking for even more? Gain access to exams, certificates, and exclusive content at LearnitAnytime.com. More information can be found in the video description below.
Copilot is a powerful add-in tool for Microsoft Excel that allows users to automate repetitive tasks, improve efficiency, and also save time. Now, it utilizes machine learning and AI technology to analyze your workflow and then suggest code snippets based on your specific needs. And with Copilot, you can automate data manipulation, formatting, calculations, and so much more without actually needing extensive programming knowledge. Now, a couple things with Copilot is the way that it comes out with outputs. An input is when you ask it a question, and then the output will be the result or the answer to that question. And the way that it randomizes this is known as stochastic process. Now, stochastic process in AI models can lead to slightly different results each time the model is run. So even though we put in the same input, right, I can say, hey, how much does this equal out to, my total sales? It might not be word for word the same exact output. And this is often what is desired, right? We often want randomness so that none of us have the same answers. So just know that if you're following along with this video, that you will never get the same answer as me. Unless it's something really straightforward like, give me the total sales that I've made. It will give you the total sales. That's not random. But if you asked it to give you insights, it might give you something totally different than the insights it gives me. Another thing is a couple of the pros and cons of using Copilot. So we're going to start off with the pros. Productivity boost, right? It aims to enhance productivity by automating various tasks such as writing emails or creating presentations or even taking meeting notes, which is great. We can also integrate it with Microsoft Suite, which is what we're doing today. We are going to be looking at Excel's version of Copilot. We also have to understand that it is a natural language process, which means we're able to just put in inputs naturally, and then we get results. And the best part about Copilot is learning and adaptation. It's always designed to learn from our user interactions. So the more questions we ask over time, it starts to understand how we think about our data. Now, some of the cons of using Copilot are, first off, potential bias and inaccuracies, right? Of course, this is a new technology, so sometimes it might generate inaccurate information based on the data it was trained on. And you'll notice that throughout the course that sometimes I might not get the exact answer I want, and I need to teach it what I want. You'll also see here that there's an adoption and learning curve. As with any new technology, you're going to have to get used to using the interface or even certain input commands that you're going to ask it or certain prompts that you want to look at. So that's why this video is going to be super helpful for you, because it's going to allow for you to understand those learning curves. And last but not least, ethical concerns, of course. It's an AI assistant, so we want to make sure that we're not just using it to generate misinformation or plagiarize content. Now, the last quick note before we actually dive into this is that Microsoft Copilot is still in development, and its final capabilities, the pricing, availability, is yet to be determined. So as with anything else that is AI powered, it's crucial to approach it with a critical mindset, right? We want to be sure that we're maintaining our privacy and security. We're going to comply with any of our company's rules, right? And this AI is definitely not a replacement for human expertise or decision making. So we are actually using it as a tool, not a replacement. So in order for us to actually use Copilot for Excel, we need to have it set up. So I don't mean actually having Copilot on your Excel. That setup should automatically update after you purchase Copilot, and then you'll just click Update, and then you should see the button. But this button will be useless unless we actually set up our data for the use of Copilot. And the way that we have to have Copilot set up for our data is that our data has to be a table, and also you have to be connected to a cloud storage system, which for me is going to be my OneDrive. So if I click on Copilot right now, it'll even tell you that autosave is turned off. You need to connect it to autosave. So that's the first thing. Even if you're not connected or you don't have a table yet, it'll remind you. So I'm going to actually click on turn on autosave. Give that a click, and it's going to say, how do you want to autosave? I'll select my OneDrive. And now it's saved to my cloud storage system. But that's not it. It's still going to tell me, hey, I only work in Excel tables. Are you ready to actually turn this into a table? And it's really great because all you have to do is select into your data set, and it picks up that it's from A3 to F105. So it's not including the title or my little bar that I made here. It's only including the headers and the data. And I'll click on convert. So already you can see artificial intelligence is helping us. We can quickly change this into a table without having to select our data. Now, I am going to just change the table styles here. You could do this if you want to as well. And let's just go with, I don't know, I'll go with something like this, or, let's do this one. So now I have my table. It looks great. You'll notice that Copilot pane is now on the right. And if you exit out of it, no worries. You can always go back to the Home tab and then click on Copilot to open up the pane again. Now, when you first open up the pane, you're going to see that immediately we're getting prompted, right? Whether we want to add a formula column or highlight our data or sort and filter it, or even just analyze it. Also in this pane, we have show data insights, show a suggestion for formula columns, or can we highlight, filter, or sort the data? And we can even prompt, right, the prompt area where we can ask a question or make a request about our data. But remember, in order to even get this pane, you first have to set it up so that your data has to be a table and that your autosave is turned on. So the pane itself is going to look very similar across the different Microsoft suite. So whether you're in PowerPoint or Word or Excel, you'll typically have this pane here and it works the same. If you click the little drop down, you can either move or resize it or get help on Copilot or even just close it out or click the X to close out. And then when you want to bring it back up, you just click on Copilot in your Home tab. Now at this moment, you'll see all the different options here once again, and that typically comes with every single Copilot. So just a list of different prompts that you can use, and then underneath it you have those prompts as well. So whether I'm clicking how can I highlight, filter, or sort data, it'll give me some information, but that's the same exact thing as if I just click highlight or sort or filter. So they give you multiple ways to do the same thing, which that's Microsoft. They always have done that. You'll see, once again, we can ask a question or make a request. But if you don't know exactly where to start, maybe you're thinking, what sort of prompt should I do? You can always click on the view prompts, and it looks like a little book icon here. And what it allows for is all the different prompts, and it'll give you an idea of what you can ask it. So you'll see, what kind of prompt do you want? Do you want to create? And then you can click it, and it'll showcase all the things you can create. Or you can say understand. It'll show you all the different things like how many different teams are represented in this table or which items have the most remaining inventory. So it has a great understanding of our data already. We can click on edit where we highlight or sort or filter. Once again, it's sort of going through that same phase of what it has listed here. And then we can ask, right? How can Copilot help? So it's sort of the same four here that are here, it's just marked a little differently. Another thing that's really awesome is that we can use our microphone to ask questions. So if you're going to be asking a long question and you just don't like to type it out, you can use the little microphone. Now, once you come up with a question and you're ready to go, then you can start to use whether these buttons you want to use, or if you just want to ask a question, you can quickly do that. Now, remember that this is going to be different from whatever you put in. So even though we may ask the same question, if you're following along with the training, always remember the randomness of the output, right? So let's take a moment and click on Show Data Insights and see what sort of insights we get for our first command. Now, throughout this training, it is going to say working on it, understanding your data, finalizing your data. So it's going to be a little more time that we have to wait. Because remember, this is AI, it is newer technology, and it is going through all different ways to analyze our data. You'll see the first thing it decided to do was get an insight where it took my total items sold by price. Now, I would say that doesn't really make sense for me, but maybe for some of you, you might say, yeah, that works for us. Like, which items? But for me, I would rather have it so that it shows me not just the pricing, but it shows me what the items are. And then it shows me how many items we sold, right? That would make more sense to me. So as you can see, AI generated this content and it still might be incorrect. So you can actually rate it. Once you get the results, you can either add it to a new sheet, or it'll even say, the content might be incorrect. So you can give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you dislike the way that it pulled this. I personally didn't like this because, once again, I don't want to know my pricing. Like, I know the South is $1.99, but yeah. But it'll also tell you right here, it'll say, here's the data insight I found for you. The total items sold by prices are $4.99 with 144,367 items sold. And then it runs through how it made this. But once again, this is data that just makes no sense to me. Now you can quickly change the topic and it'll kind of refresh, or you can keep asking it questions or ask more insights, like, can I see another insight? So if I click on it again, can I see another insight? It'll show me total items sold increase over time. So it's showing me now the years and the total items sold. Okay, a little better. This is something that makes sense for me. So it looks like we are increasing in sales, which is a good thing. Not as much as I want maybe, but it's a good thing. And I'll give it a little check mark and say, I really like that. Now you'll see here that once you click whether it's going to be the down dislike or the up like, you can then say, what did you like? Give it detail. You can include a screenshot as well, or even upload the file, as long as you're keeping compliance with your company. You don't want to upload just your file if there's some data that's confidential there. You'll see share my prompt and my generated responses. So Microsoft is definitely working to improve Copilot every single day. And the more feedback you give Copilot, the more better it's just going to be for us in the future. Now, once you're done with this, of course, I won't submit this right now. You can click the little X and it'll bring you back to your Copilot preview here. You can say that you can add all the insights to the grid, or once again, you can get another insight. And you'll see it's a little quicker this time. Now it's telling me the frequency of total items sold. I can get another one. Now it's telling me for products, notebooks, the month in March has a noticeably higher total items sold. I can see that in March, we sold a lot of notebooks. Something I wouldn't be able to just look at and tell right away. So once again, this is pretty amazing technology. So take a moment and try some of these prompts out on your own, get some insights, and when we come back, we're going to talk about being able to really visualize our data in a way that's meaningful to us. Always remember that you can change the topic, which means it's going to erase everything else that you've done. It'll say, okay, let's change topics. What would you like to talk about? And then it'll go through that same prompt before where you could get data insights, formulas, or even highlight, filter, or sorting the data. But let's say that we want to visualize this data. We know that if we go to show data insights, it'll work on it, and it's probably going to give us a visual that might not make sense for us. So we'll go through understanding our data, almost there, and let's take a look at what it comes up with. So at this point, once it shows cases are visual, and you'll see total items sold by prices again, it sort of repeats it. So that change topics is kind of like a reset button, and you'll see that this just definitely makes no sense, right? I don't want to see the total items sold by prices. I want to see the total items sold by product. So what I'll do is I'll actually put that in the prompt here. I'll say, please create a chart that shows, and then I'll name the columns, and you don't have to put it in quotes or anything. That's the best part about this. Total items sold per product. Or you can say by product, whatever makes sense. And you can even tell it, please make it a clustered column. And then I'll press enter. So it's going to go through, it's going to read my prompt. I'm just simply telling it to, instead of total items by pricing, create total items by products and make it into specifically a clustered column chart. And look at how amazing this is. Immediately, it creates it for us. Now, this is exactly what I wanted. It tells me not only I created a clustered column chart and it'll show me what the highest total items sold for binders was, but it also creates the chart for me. Now at this point, I can add this to a new sheet by just clicking this button here, add to new sheet, and you'll see it creates a pivot table, and then it creates a pivot chart. So when it's talking about visualizations or it's talking about any type of table, it's typically talking about pivot tables and pivot charts because of their unique values and unique ways of working. So now I have an awesome looking table, an awesome looking chart, and they put it all in a separate sheet. Now, just because I'm in a separate sheet doesn't mean my Copilot's not there still. You'll notice that over here, yes, we have pivot chart fields, but right above it, we have our Copilot. So you can switch between the two. So I'm going to just switch back to Copilot, and I'm taking a look at this. It says done. I added total items sold by product to sheet 1. And I can even go back to the table, and it'll switch me back. Now at this point, it's going to give you more prompts. So the more you put into Copilot, the more it prompts you for other ways to analyze your data. For instance, it says you could get the percentage of total items sold that comes from the division East. Or we can ask something like, which is the division for months in February? Or months with total items sold higher than 800 or 81,000, right? So that's the best part. Now, if I do ask it something like, please create a pie chart with sales per division, if I do something like that, it might not come back with the results I want. And the reason it's doing this is because you're saying division, but you're also saying sales per division. And on our table, we don't have a header called sales. So it's probably not going to understand what I mean by this. And it's thinking, and actually, like I said, there's always different results. Sometimes things will work, sometimes it won't. And let's see if it worked right. So yeah, it looks like total items sold by division. So it is learning. The last time I did this, it actually didn't work. And if it doesn't work for you, once again, remember that this is randomized outputs. So sometimes they'll say, hey, Copilot can't do this. That's okay, just rephrase your prompt and then it should work. So this looks pretty great. And let's say I created a pie chart. If I click copy to the clipboard, you could actually paste that information in here, right? And then just change this in. Now I have the highest total sold. So pretty cool. Now I'm not done yet. I still want to continue with this. So maybe I want to see the pie chart. I'm going to add it to a new sheet here. Then you can do your editing. Now you might be thinking, well, is there a way to add to this pie chart now, right? And you'll notice that if you're on this sheet, it's actually clicked off of it. Your prompt area is grayed out because this prompt was created from a table. So even though I'm clicking on the results, I can't do any changes to them. Now that's not to say if I go back to my data that now it's available again. I can't say something like, please add percentages to my pie chart. If you don't click change topic, it knows what you're talking about. So it's going to keep a history of everything you've asked it so far. So let's take a moment here to let it do its thing. And here is a great example. So it says, I'm sorry, but I'm unable to add percentages to the pie chart. Is there anything else I can help you with? So there are certain limitations to what Copilot can do. That doesn't mean I can't go in and change this myself. The data is already here, so you can always go to the Analyze tab or Design tab and start to add those elements in there. So I'm going to add those elements. I'll probably add data labels, probably on the outside. And there it is. And if I wanted to change these to percentages, just double click to open up the format data labels. And instead of value, you just choose percentage. So it almost got the work done, not fully for us, but at the same time, it still looks great. And then, of course, you can change the design, the formatting, whatever you like. Maybe you don't like this design. I'll make this more of a blue color. Well, I don't want them all blue, just select one of them. I'll make that one darker blue. I'll make this one red. Let's go with a yellow. Let's go with a lighter green. And there we go. And if you wanted to add the percentages, once again, you can always change, go back to the Design tab, Layouts, or you could click the little plus icon and choose where you want the data labels to go. Maybe I want them to be in the center. And then also, you know what I want to do here? I want to make these white. Except for this one. This one, yeah, that looks better. Something like that. So, and maybe you want to make them a little bigger, whatever works. But now we have an awesome looking pie chart. And even though Copilot couldn't do the work for us, it did most of it. The next thing we're going to talk about is being able to highlight, filter, and sort our data. And if you're ever wondering how to, always remember you can reset by clicking Change Topic, reset to the original 3 prompts. So if you just click on Change Topic, it'll reset, and then you'll see Show Data Insights, Suggest the Formula, or How to Highlight, Filter, and Sort Data. And you can click here and it'll give you a couple of how-tos on filtering and sorting. I like filter to items that are due next week, or highlight the data, and a couple other things you can do as well. But if you actually want to sort, you can actually click on the View prompts and go to Edit, and this is where you'll see sorting, highlighting, and filtering, and also applying. So these are the prompts to actually do what we want. We could say that we want to sort this, and you'll see sort. Now it is important to note that you can only sort in ascending or descending order. If I try to sort in any other order, for instance, let's say I want to sort this, sort by products in ascending order. That's going to work perfectly. So I'll go through its prompt, make sure it's looking at our data, and then we'll get the results. And there we go. You can now see that products is binders, then notebooks, then paper clips, and then pens. And it'll even tell you that it's done and it's done that for you. But what happens if I want to sort this in a specific order? Maybe I want to sort it by division, right? And I could say sort by division, but I want it in this order. Let's do sort by division. North, east, south, west. If I put in that prompt, it's actually going to return a result that says it can't do it because Copilot, as of right now, can't do custom sorting. So let's give it a second to finish up here. And you'll see here it says, I'm sorry, but I'm unable to sort the division column in the custom order you specified. However, I can sort the division column in ascending or descending order. So right there it tells me that we can't do custom orders yet. Do I see this, in the future? Of course. It's always going to update. Remember, I said it's a learning language, so it's going to start to learn more, and we should be able to do that sooner than later. Now, with that said, the next thing we're going to talk about is highlighting. And once again, if you just click on change topic, you can go back to the original prompts. But anytime you ask it to do something, it comes up with other prompts, like how many products of binders, or are there any outliers in my data? So that's a really great thing that gives you just prompts that you might have not thought of. But let's go back to change topic. The keyword prompt for highlight is going to be highlight. So if you click on how can I highlight, it'll tell you. You can say highlight data, try saying bold the top 10 values in the sales column. Or I can click on view prompts, go to edit, and choose highlight D. And then you'll see that it automatically puts that prompt in. Or you could just use regular English and say something like, please highlight let's do top 10, we'll say top 10 total items sold in a yellow color, something like that. So hopefully we'll see this work very nicely where it's going to highlight the top 10 total items sold. So this is the column that we want. And it'll do it in a yellow color. And there we go. It's actually starting to work right now. It'll say done. I applied a yellow fill color and a black font color to the top 10 items in the column total items sold. So I can now go through and see that that conditional formatting was done for me. Now what's really cool about this is even though Copilot did this for me, if you want to see the rule, you can always just go back to conditional formatting and go to manage rules, and you'll see it's in there now. So it's applying this top 10 and it's applying this format. So that's a really cool thing to see that we didn't even have to do this, artificial intelligence did. So with that said, since Copilot was so good at doing this, let's just clear that out. You can either go to conditional formatting, clear rules, and clear from entire sheet, but I'm very curious to see if it'll actually clear it. Clear the yellow color, highlight, or clear the highlight. Let's see if it will do that one. Now remember, it is keeping track of the ones before it, but if you did close out this file and open it up again, well, then it's going to continue a whole new session for Copilot. And it's finishing up. Let's see if it's going to apply it. Done. I cleared the formatting on the top 10 items in the columns. So it looks like it still didn't do it. It says that it did, but it didn't. And this is once again one of those examples of how it's not fully there, right? The capabilities are great, but it doesn't always work in our favor. So I would say that this is incorrect. I actually didn't clear the formatting. So I'll put a little down arrow and I'll just tell it didn't do what I asked, but said it did. And then I include a screenshot if I wanted to. And then I can say share my prompt and generate a response relative to this. And then may we contact you. And then I could submit. So that's pretty cool. Once again, this is something that I would do. Feedback always helps to generate a better application later on. But as for clearing this formatting, once again, we could just clear it ourselves. Clear from entire sheet, and it's back to normal. The last thing I want to showcase is filtering. So you can either just start by saying filter for this, or I can say change topics and go back to the prompts. So if you want to go back to prompts, you always can, but in this one, I'm not going to. I'm going to say, please filter for the month of January. And let's see what it comes up with. So we have our months. It should be smart enough to see that in our data. And look how cool that is. Immediately we see, and it'll even tell us, done. I applied a filter on month column to show only things equal to January. So this is working immediately for us. Now that we have this, we can always just use the same thing where we click the little drop down and clear the filter. But I am curious once again to see if it will clear the filters. Clear all filters on table. And it's always fun to just play around, see what works, what doesn't work, and just see this technology grow. So we'll give it some time once again. It's almost there. Let's see if it returns our data. And there it goes. That one actually worked really well. And let's see if he'll say, done, I removed the filter on the table. Is there anything else you would like me to do? So since we made this a table, this is actually a good point to look at. It does say table 1. It is a good idea to click on your table and rename it. That way you just have a better way of calling out to it and referencing it. But yeah, it's not necessary, but I just think it'd be nice to do. The next thing we're going to be talking about is how we can have Copilot create formulas for us based off of columns that already exist. For instance, we have here our total items sold, and we also have our prices. And maybe what I want to see is what is the profit from that? And we know that we can do that by taking the total items sold and multiplying it by pricing. So I'm going to go over here and ask a question and ask to please create a new column called profit by taking items and prices and multiplying them. So we're going to take a moment and see that work. And we'll see what it comes back as the result. And there we go. So when you're asking for it to create a column, it'll calculate the profit for each row in the table by multiplying the total items sold. You'll notice I only said items. You don't have to actually write total items sold. It knew what I was talking about, and it's going to multiply it by the respective prices. It'll even show you what that looks like. And it's naming the entire column by header. So at total items sold, this multiplied by prices here. If you needed to explain the formula a little more, you can click the little caret icon, and it'll even showcase it again. Calculates the profit. It tells you the following formula multiplies the value by the value in prices, and then it formats the results as a currency value with a 1,000 separator and 2 decimal places, and any negative values would be displayed as red. We don't have any negative values, so that's great. But now what we can do is insert the column, and just by hovering over, you'll notice that right next to prices, now we see profit, which is pretty amazing. Now I can click Insert Column, and there we go. It says done. I inserted column to column G. It named it profit for us. The one thing I might do is just select these and merge and center again. That way I can extend the line. But this looks amazing. Now I can quickly see that it works, and I can even get insights based off of this column now. For instance, I can ask a question saying, what is my top profit? And it'll tell me what my top profit was, which is binders from our May sales in 2023 north. It'll tell us that it's $44,810 or $840 and 14 cents. And that looks awesome. We can even create more columns as well. Let's say I want to change the topic again to go back to the original. I can show a suggestion for a column, and let's see what it comes up with. So it's saying right here that what we could do is calculate the profit margin, and we can do that for each row by dividing the profit by the product of total items sold and then their prices as well. So once again, it's going to show us the formula. If we need to explain it a little more, it will, and then we can insert the column. And of course, it's going to be at 100% because, well, there's nothing that we didn't have a percentage-wise. So this works beautiful. Now, I can decide not to do this because I don't think it works for me. I know that everything is sold at 100%, so I think we're pretty good. But I can say that maybe I want to create a projection, projected, let's say sales projections or profit projections by taking profits and increasing them by 3%. So create profit projection column, and it's going to take the profits and increase them by 3%. And let's see if they can do that. And once again, it's going to work on it. It'll go through. I know it's working because it's saying that it's generating the formula column. And typically when it gets this far, it means it's going to work. If it does return like a result that says it can't do it, no worries. And look at this, it's actually going to take it by a 3% increase, which would be 1.03, and that's what it's going to multiply by. And we can insert that, and that's what our profit projections would look like. And there we go. Now, if something like this happens just because of formatting, you could just use the format painter, and that looks good again. Once again, merge and center, and now we have an expanded table. So adding formulas can be very important, and it's super easy to do it now. We don't even need to know how to write formulas or what the syntax is for Excel formula writing. Copilot can do it for us. So we've seen how amazing Copilot can be with its prompts, but let's actually start to explore some different types of ways we can analyze our data. Let's say, for instance, that I just want to ask it a simple question like, how much profit did we make in, let's say, June of 2022? I'll ask it a simple question. It's going to go through, give it a second to work. So how much profit did we make in June of 2022? And once again, this is, Copilot and its beginning stages. So it's starting to create my information. Sometimes it takes a little longer depending on internet and bandwidth as well. But you'll see here it tells me that the sum of profit, the year 2022, 132,642. And it's telling me in June of 2022 that was what the profit was. So it created a pivot table. Now you can add this right away to a new sheet, just like this. And you'll see it's now actually doing years, and it's filtering for 2022, doing months and filtering. So I love the fact that they do this. And let's just click go back to table. Now at this point, as always, whenever you ask Copilot to do something, it starts to come up with topics that are a little relevant to what we're talking about. So for instance, which is the products for month July, or percentage of total profit projected for each product. So let's take a look at that. So we're going to see the percentage of total profit projection for each product, which I'm assuming is going to be about 100% on each. We'll see what it comes up with. It's finishing up, so that's good news. And then once again, even though it suggested this, so this is a really good detail to showcase in this training, is that even though it suggested it itself, and I clicked on their suggestion for the prompt, it told me that they couldn't do it. So that's the little bit of downfall with Copilot is you might get prompted to ask for something and it won't work. For instance, let's take a look at another one that it prompted. Now it's asking us percentage of total profit for each product. Let's see if that's going to work. So we'll give that a click. And I can foresee in the future of this, it's continuous learning. So it's going to continue to learn and understand the things that we're asking it. And look, right here, we now get a nice little chart, the bar chart. It tells us the highest profit by product. It'll even tell you that binders have the highest profit with notebooks being followed. And it'll even create a pivot chart to get the answer for that. And then let's keep going with this. Let's say that I want to ask it something else. Let's do this. Did I make more profit in in, let's say, January month or April month. And let's see if I can figure this one out. Now, as I said, throughout this training, have fun with this, explore. You can write whatever you want. There's no right or wrongs here. We're going to take the time right now to explore some things that will work and some things that won't. And once again, it is going to be different for everyone's outputs. But it looks like this is looking pretty great. It says you made more profit in April with a total of 215,000 as opposed to January where we made 143. So, and there it is. It creates a little pivot table for us, and we can continue to add those to new sheets. But let's keep going. Total profit by division as a column chart, or we can show total items sold by years as a line chart. That might be something nice, or distribution of division by month. Let's do that one. Let's see if that's going to be something that comes through. And once again, this is just amazing technology here. Sometimes it's going to work, sometimes it won't, but it's going to make it easier for us to create different content and analyze our data differently. And look how awesome this one is. Here's the distribution of division by month. East has the highest number of rows in June with 9, followed by West in March with 9, and they created a query result to get the answer. So this looks great, and I can add it to a new sheet, and let's see what they came up with. And there we go. So it's counting the rows of divisions and how many entries were in each row. So this is something that is amazing. Now at this point, I'm going to go back to the table again. And what we're going to be talking about is the Copilot Lab next up. But before we get into the Copilot Lab part, let's actually click into View Prompts and take a look at some of these as well. Let's do this. Let's say that we want to add a column that calculates the profit per order. Okay, that sounds like something pretty cool. So let's see if it can do it. Profits per item sold. And we'll see what it does here. It might return something that just makes no sense. Add a column that calculates profit per the item sold. So we can see if the price was $2.99. So we should get the same prices as a new column now. And there we go. It looks like it's doing price. And if we insert, so it's almost there. It's got a little bit of an incorrect there. So it's given us 209. But let's view what it's doing here. It's telling us that, and it's just going to explain the formula, but it's doing a 70%. So it's calculating, multiplies the value in prices column. So it's taking our prices column, and it's multiplying that by 70% to find the profit per item. So I don't know why it would do something like that. I don't think that's going to be something we need. We could have just taken the profit column divided by the total items sold and got the price, because that's what it's multiplied to be. But as I said, it's a learning process. So for this one, I'm not going to say anything. But let's keep going. Let's do, how much did we make in total profit? How much did we make in total profits? So now it's going to do a calculation where it should take the profits, all of them, and sum them together, or do an auto sum. Once again, we'll see if that works, and it does, sum of profit. It says the total profit made is 1,733,150. Right, so that looks great. But let's keep going with this. How much did I make total for each year? How much profit did I make total for each year? So what I'm assuming they're going to do is probably create a pivot table, and then they will filter for each year. So they'll do 20, I think we have 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023. And there it is. They actually created a line chart instead, which is pretty awesome still, and we can clearly see. And then it gives us the answers here. So once again, you can copy this information, put it into a report if you wanted to. You don't have to just simply stare at the chart here, you can actually take the information and copy it, maybe put it into a report, put it into OneNote, whatever you like. Okay, so this looks really great. Now what I want to do is change the topic. I'm going to just take it all back to the beginning, which means it's not going to feed off of this. So when we ask it a question, it keeps feeding into those questions and making things that are relevant for us, relevant prompts. But if we choose to change topic, it goes back and it erases all that history of data, which is good to understand. Otherwise, if you click this by accident and you're wondering why it's not giving you those other requests like it did here, those other prompts, it's because of the fact that we've changed the topic to put it back to its original state. All right, so try out a couple of these on your own with this data. Have fun with it. Ask questions that we didn't even ask here and see what you come up with. We've seen Copilot Pane in our application here, but we can actually go even further with Copilot. If you'll see here the little view prompts area, we can click on that little book icon, and then once we click on it, it brings us to those prompts that I showed you before. But we can click on View More Prompts, and it's going to open up this dialog box, and it's going to show us some of the prompts from our Copilot Lab. Now, Copilot Lab offers a collection of prompts that will teach users how to create, learn, and use Copilot. And the Copilot prompts are the instructions or questions that you're going to use to tell Copilot what you want to do. You'll see here some of the ones that they have pre-created for us, and we can even save those prompts by clicking on the little save icon or tag, and then you'll see all your saved prompts by clicking here. You can also go through the different categories, create, understand, or edit, and filter through them. But if you truly want to get the most out of Copilot Lab, you can see all the prompts in your Copilot Lab here. And when you click on this is where it's going to bring you to that Copilot Lab in your web browser. Now that we're in Copilot Lab, this is where we can explore the in products, so where Copilot exists, for example, 365, Word, Teams, Outlook, PowerPoint, Excel, even in OneNote or Windows, Loop, Whiteboard, or Forms. You'll see all the prompts to try. And remember that Copilot Lab is here to teach us what sort of prompts exist. Now, in the prompts to try, we can save prompts by clicking the little ribbon icon, and we can quickly save a prompt. So if I want to save this one, just click it, and now I have all my saved prompts here. So that's a nice little flag system. Right next to it, you'll see we can filter for whatever app we're using this for, whether we want only Excel or Word or even Outlook prompts. And then what sort of category do you want? What prompt? Do you want to create something or edit it or understand it, ask questions about it, or even just catch up and get summaries? You'll notice that when we're looking at the prompt, it'll explain what the prompt is, a nice little category, what's new, and then you can see an example of what you would write for the prompt. You'll see in the bottom left-hand corner what the prompt is coming from, so which application. In this case, this would be Microsoft 365. This one's a OneNote prompt. This one's an Outlook prompt, a Loop prompt. And you can go through and find PowerPoint. And this is also what's really cool about this system is that you're learning, right? So if you're like, how do I add an image to a slide? It'll showcase add an image of, and then you can say, for example, a puppy dog to the slide. So if you don't remember that, you can always just save this and then use them later on in your applications once you're there. And there's so many different ones, like Shape, that's a pretty cool one. Microsoft pre-created a bunch of these for us. We can click on Show More. Show More. And there's just so many different ones. Now, once you go through the different prompts and you choose which ones you want to save and use inside of Copilot in those applications, you can then go back to the app and start using them. You'll see down here we do have a couple of articles for quick tips for better prompts. So summarize this email in 2 bullet points. You'll see that you're giving more detail and you're specifying that you want 2 bullet points. That's something that we're going to learn about for Copilot, is that we need to really be specific on what we're asking it. because, well, it's still a computer, right? We're still talking to computer language. Underneath it, we have FAQs. What is Copilot prompt? Or what can I get done with Copilot? How can I get the best responses or results? You'll see a bunch of different articles here. Now, going back to the top, you can go into the Get Started, and there's so many different ones. They have for home users, business leaders, or for admins. Let's say that I'm a business leader, and I click into that. If you notice, the service is unavailable right now. So these are services that are starting to come out slowly. There are slow rollouts. So just, be patient with it. You'll see this one's still unavailable. And I believe admins is unavailable too. Oh, no, they finally got the admins up. So just wait for the business leaders. That should be coming out soon. And then we'll see here Microsoft Copilot 365 documentation. Get ready for Copilot with 365. Get started with, manage it, get trained on. So they have so many different resources for you to take a look at and utilize. Another thing that's really important with Copilot that I always say is the plugins. This is going to plug into different apps and integrations, not only with just Microsoft, with other technologies as well. So take a look at some of the things that are coming up. And once again, end user Copilot resource, Copilot Lab is one of those resources. This lab is where you meet Copilot, you understand what it can do, you can see it in everyday apps. And those are, once again, those prompts, and you can click the little save prompt. So this is more like that main page here. This is the landing page for Copilot Lab, but it's pretty much the same. If you go to prompts to try, it'll just bring us back to where we were. What's new? That's always something that's important. I'm always reading up on the latest updates for Microsoft Copilot. You'll see here prompts of the month. What were the most important ones, or what were things that weren't working that they've now updated? Transform a doc into a presentation. That's a really cool one. And you can upload document files. We'll actually talk about this in one of our other classes when we get into using Copilot with Word and also using it with PowerPoint. But as you can see here, improvements based on our feedback. Before we talk about how you can submit feedback, it is important. Remember, this technology is young still, so we need to really express what's working or not working for us to make sure that Copilot can evolve into the tool that we need it to be. You can take a look at some of the previous updates as well, our February updates, January, December. Just click on the little carrot icon, and you'll see all of them. And I just love the way that they display like all of the icons. You know that this is specifically for Word. It tells you, what it's for. We're actually going to be talking about Word for the web. So transform your text into a table. This looks like it's only available for Word for the web, so not for the desktop app. That's another thing that's really important with using Copilot. There's going to be different things that work in the online version versus the desktop version. And there we go. So always remember that this is still Copilot Lab. We can have all the same tabs up top. We can switch between prompts to try, getting started. Remember, for business leader is one that's not available right now, but it will be rolled out sooner than later. And there you go. We've seen Copilot's capabilities inside of Excel for desktop. We've even went into the Copilot Lab and saw all the different prompts that we have access to. What we're going to do next is showcase how we can access the online version of Excel. So in order to do that, we do need to sign into our 365 account. So I'm going to go grab my 365 account, and we're going to then be able to take a look at Copilot for Excel Online. So now that I have my web browser open, I'm going to just go to office.com, sign in with your credentials, and that will bring you to your 365. Now, as you can see here, we do have Copilot for 365. We're actually going to talk about that in another video. But for now, let's just go to all of our apps And what we're going to do is head over to Excel for Online. Now at this point, I'm going to just open up one of the ones we've been working on, that sales data, the same one, because remember, in order for Copilot to work for Excel, it has to be a table, the data, and it also has to be saved to our 365 or our OneDrive online account. So now that I have it here, I can quickly just open it up in the online version. Now there are a couple differences in the way that it looks, of course, because this is the online version of Excel, but everything works the same way. So I have my data here. I can click on Copilot and it'll still open up that Copilot pane. You'll notice that the icon looks a little different, but everything else is the same. We can view prompts, create, understand, edit, or ask questions. We can also, if we click on to like add columns or we want to see more prompts, we can go over to the lab. So let's say learn more about Copilot. We can open it up and then we're back in the lab here. Also, remember that we can change topic to reset this. And then it works the same way that we saw before. Let's ask it a question about our data. Let's say, how much should we make in pen sales? And it's going to go through the same way that we've been doing this in the desktop. And there it is. So it tells us that our profit for products pens was $358,453.16. And here's a pivot table I created to get the answer. We can automatically add that to a new sheet. And there it is. All right, so online version, you can use Copilot. Desktop version, you can use Copilot. You can access the lab, Copilot Lab from both of those. Everything's the same. There's not a real difference between a desktop version for Copilot and the online version. Now, if you do notice, like I showed you before with the labs, that there is something that says it is only pertaining to the web version, well, then you know that that prompt will soon later carry over, but for now it's only for the web version. I haven't found too many of those for Excel, but yeah, just explore and have a lot of fun with this. As you can see, Copilot is so amazing and there's so much you can do with it. I hope you all enjoyed this course, and I'll see you all next time. Thanks.
Thanks for watching. To earn certificates and watch our courses without ads, check out LearnitAnytime.com.